Today we're putting one of my water propagations on a moss pile. Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to focus just on one thing, and that is taking a water propagation and putting it on a moss pile for the first time. Now I've got two cuttings of Philodendron gigas over here. Excuse the leaves, they've suffered a little bit, but that's okay. Over the last couple of months, I wanted it to focus on building a root system, and I kind of forgot about it a little bit. I definitely kept it in water for a little bit longer than I had to, but that's not necessarily a problem in itself. You can easily keep plants in water for a long time. They will just grow more and more roots, but the longer you keep them in water, the harder of a time they might have trying to adjust to the new potting medium instead. So I usually like to wait for my plant to have secondary roots. That means that the main root has some roots coming off of it. They're actually two cuttings, but because they were in a small glass together when I propagated them, the roots have kind of intertwined. So I'm not even going to bother separating them because I feel like I would induce more shock than I would do good over here. One of them already has a new shoot, the other one not quite yet, but I can see that both have small aerial roots that would be able to take full advantage of a moss pile. So I'm just showing you also the secondary roots. See how all of the larger roots have smaller roots coming off of it. Another top tip is trying to get your cutting to have at least two roots. So either two roots from the same node, or maybe take a cutting that is multiple nodes, so that in case something happens to one of the roots as part of the potting up process, the plant still has a second root. So basically you're not just relying on one lifeline. I'm going to pot these two into one pot together, which is a 14 centimeter pot. The see-through pot enables me to check on root health, and I get them from Bunnings. And I will put this on a moss pile. I have two types of moss piles over here. I've got the one with the plastic backing, and I've got the open moss pile. Now I'm planning on putting this into my greenhouse later on, and in my greenhouse I have a little bit more airflow than I have inside, so I'm going to go with the plastic backing so that it dries out less quickly. These are from Grow Vertical, and I've got a discount code for you, and everything is in the description. Last thing we need is a tub of aeroid mix, and I've got a specific potting mix video for you as well if you want to know what's inside of this mix. Now when it comes to transferring plants from water propagations into their medium, it doesn't matter if you add a moss pile to it or not. Whenever you do that repot, there are chances of it going wrong because the plant is used to one medium and you're now changing the other medium. Hence my recommendation to not leave it in water for all too long. Define too long, it could take a while for the plant to root in the first place. I think this has been in here for maybe 5 months or so, which is kind of longish for me, but technically you can grow plants in water for years as long as you provide sufficient nutrients. But if you're planning on putting it on a moss pile anyway, I would really start potting it up as soon as it has these secondary roots. Now when it comes to potting up a plant on a moss pile, and that applies to both types of moss piles or any other type of moss pile that you might make, it is really important that the moss pile itself goes all the way to the bottom of your pot. That will give you stability. If you have a moss pile, I see this quite frequently online. People have a moss pile like this, they put a little garden stake in it, and then they only put the garden stake in the pot, and the moss pile kind of just hovers on the top of it. That is going to be so unstable. If you want this to be stable, the moss pile needs to go all the way to the bottom of the pot, irrespective of which type of moss pile you use. That will give it stability. Now the part of the pile that's within the pot, I keep empty. I don't put moss in here because the moss would have too much water retention for my liking. So I'll fill that bottom part with my substrate, in this case the aeroid mix. It's very chunky, there's bark, perlite, pumice, cocoa chips, a bit of cocoa peat and tree fern fiber for water retention, but overall very chunky. Beautiful. I'll flip this upside down. Now what you also can do is you can take your cutting, kind of pin it to the moss pile whereabouts you want it to be, but this cutting has kind of enough structure to do that all by itself. I don't need to pin it. I then just place the plant in its pot like this, and I will now top it up with more aeroid mix. I do not want to compress the aeroid mix. I just want to put it in here and kind of shake it in. I don't want it to be super compressed. I want it to be nice and light and fluffy and aerated. Aeroid roots love oxygen, so I want to make sure that there's lots of little air pockets throughout. Now, I don't connect my moss pole to the pot or vice versa. I kind of lock it in place by just adding a little bit of aeroid mix at the back side as well. You can also, of course, if you have a round moss pole like the one lying on the desk over here, you can also put it right in the middle of your pot. But I'm gonna have this hanging against the edge of my greenhouse. So I'm gonna have the side that with the plastic backing go towards the back end of the pot, because this is where the greenhouse wall is going to be. So it's just gonna have that one presentation side. I'm not planning on having this plant grow 360 around the moss pole, which is also not really how they would grow in nature. In nature, they would find a tree and pretty much just climb up that tree. They wouldn't circle around the tree, right? Would probably get a bit motion sick. Now, I didn't connect it, but because I kind of wedged a little bit of aeroid mix at the back of the pot as well, this is all just holding itself together. And eventually, the plant will grow roots into the medium, which will further connect it all and keep it all together. Beautiful. Now I just want to make sure that this new carding or these new shoots over here start attaching to the moss pole. But as long as I keep the moss pole moist, these roots will find their way and will start climbing up the moss pole. Now I always start my plants when they're really, really small so that the new growth can take full advantage of the moss pole, climb up the moss pole, and as every node starts growing and climbing up the moss pole, the nodes will attach to the moss pole using their aerial roots. No point in putting a plant on a moss pole in hindsight where it already reaches the top of the pole without actually having rooted into it. Now, right now, the plant has not rooted into the moss pole, so right now, I'm not necessarily focused on watering the moss pole because I'm watering whatever substrate has the roots in it. So I will water the pot right now, but to encourage root growth, I'm going to attempt in keeping the moss pole moist, specifically the bottom part of the moss pole where I want the plant to attach to right now. Roots seek moisture, so if I keep the moss pole moist, I'm having a better chance of the plant attaching to the moss pole really quickly. Right, let's keep it really short and sharp today. And also let me know in the comments down below if you want more of these really small tutorials that really just focus on one small topic. Anyway. Thank you for watching, like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment, and I'll see you next time.